Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Love English Lab. I'm Michael.
And I'm Alex. We're really excited today because we're going to talk about something that almost everyone faces at some point in life: job interviews in English.
Oh, yes. The famous job interview. I still remember the first time I had to do one in English. Honestly, I thought my heart was going to jump out of my chest.
Same here. It's already stressful enough when you do an interview in your own language, right? But when you add English, suddenly every word feels twice as heavy. You start worrying, what if I don't understand the question? What if I forget a word? What if I freeze?
Exactly. And I think that's why this episode will be so helpful. We're not going to play recruiters. We're not going to act like perfect teachers who always have the right answer. No, we're going to share what it felt like to be candidates. Real stories, real mistakes, and of course, better versions of those answers now that we've had time to learn and practice.
Right. Because the truth is, everyone listening probably wants to feel more confident. And let's be honest, interviews are not just about grammar or vocabulary. They're about how you tell your story, how you show confidence, and how you connect with the person on the other side of the table.
Exactly. And we'll break this episode into parts that follow the natural order of an interview. First impressions, the classic, tell me about yourself, then why you want the job, strengths and weaknesses, those tricky behavioral questions, and finally how to close the interview.
But before we dive into those, let's warm up with something honest. Michael, what's the first interview in English that you remember?
Oh, that's easy. I was applying for a part-time customer service job, nothing fancy, just answering calls and helping clients. But when the interviewer asked me, "Can you tell me a little about yourself?" I froze. My brain went blank. I managed to say something like, "My name is Michael, I like working, and I need this job."
That sounds like something I would have said too. Ha!
Yeah, not the best first impression, right? Looking back, I realized the problem wasn't my vocabulary. It was that I didn't know how to structure my answer. I didn't have a plan.
That's such an important point. Many people think if I memorize difficult words, I'll sound professional. But honestly, it's better to have simple, clear sentences that show confidence.
Exactly. And that's why we're here today. We'll show you the difference between a nervous, unprepared answer and a stronger, more polished version. That way, our listeners can learn how to transform their own answers.
And I want to say this right at the start. Don't be ashamed of making mistakes. We've all made them. You're going to hear some of ours in this episode, and maybe you'll laugh at how basic or funny they sound. But that's the process. Mistakes are part of learning.
Totally. And the good news is, once you know the questions that almost always appear in interviews, you can prepare. You can practice. And when the real moment comes, you'll feel way more confident.
So, for everyone listening, imagine you're sitting in the waiting room for your big interview. You're nervous. You're trying to remember your answers. That's the situation we want to help with today.
Yes, we'll be your practice partners. Think of this episode as a safe rehearsal before the real thing.
And one last thing before we start, remember that these interview skills are not only for big corporate jobs, they also apply to everyday situations. Maybe you're interviewing for a call center, for a restaurant, for a delivery job, or even for a teaching position. The structure of the interview questions is almost always the same.
Exactly. So, whether you're just starting your career or trying to move to the next level, the lessons here are for you.
All right then, let's get started. In our first chapter, we'll talk about the most common opening question, tell me about yourself. And we'll share how we answered it in the past and how we would answer it now.
Trust me, you don't want to miss this part, because the way you start can set the tone for the whole interview.
So, let's dive in. All right, Michael, let's start with the question that everyone dreads. The one that almost always comes first.
You mean, tell me about yourself.
Exactly. It sounds so simple, right? But when you're nervous, it suddenly feels like climbing a mountain.
Oh, yes, I know that feeling. Actually, let me tell you about my very first experience with that question. I was sitting in a tiny office. The recruiter smiled at me, opened her notebook, and the very first thing she asked was, "So, Michael, can you tell me about yourself?" And my mind went completely blank.
What did you say?
I said something like, "My name is Michael. I like working hard, and I need this job." That was it.
Oh man, I can imagine the silence in that room after you said it.
Exactly. It was awkward. The recruiter just nodded politely, but I could feel that my answer didn't impress anyone.
And that's the thing. Most people think, it's just a short question, I'll improvise. But improvising in a high-pressure moment is dangerous. If you don't prepare, you end up saying the obvious things like, "My name is Alex," or "I want a job."
Right. And the interviewer already knows your name, they have your CV in front of them. What they really want is a summary of your background, your experience, and a hint of your personality.
Exactly. And I think the tricky part is balance. You don't want to sound like you're reading your whole resume, but you also don't want to be too casual.
Yeah. And another mistake I made later on was giving way too much detail. In one interview, I started telling my entire life story, where I grew up, what schools I attended, even how I got my first bike. The recruiter's face told me, "This is not what I need to know."
Oh, yes, I did that too. I once said, well, I was born in a small town. When I was 10, my parents moved to the city. I studied accounting in high school, but before that I liked soccer and music. And then suddenly I realized I was talking for 3 minutes without saying anything about my skills.
We've all been there.
So here's the question for our listeners. What do recruiters really want when they ask, "Tell me about yourself"?
Good point. In my experience, they want a short, structured story. Something like who you are professionally, a couple of strengths or key experiences, and what you're looking for now.
Yes, I like to think of it as 3 parts. Part 1, a short introduction, who you are in a professional sense. Part 2, a quick summary of your relevant experience. And Part 3, your motivation for being there.
That's perfect. 3 parts keep it simple and easy to remember.
Okay, let's try it. Imagine you're applying for a customer service job again. How would you answer now?
All right, let me think. I'm Michael, and I have 2 years of experience working in customer service. In my last job at a retail store, I learned how to handle customer complaints and solve problems quickly. I enjoy helping people and making sure they leave satisfied. Now I'm excited about the opportunity to continue developing these skills in a professional call center environment.
See? That's short, clear, and professional. You mentioned your name, your experience, what you learned, and why you're here.
Yeah, and the difference is huge compared to my old, "I like working hard."
Exactly. And for the listeners, notice that Michael didn't use complicated vocabulary. He didn't say, "I possess a plethora of interpersonal competencies." No, he kept it simple. "I learned how to handle complaints and solve problems quickly." That sounds real and confident.
Right. Simplicity is power.
Okay, let me try one. Imagine I'm applying for a waiter job. My bad version first. My name is Alex. I like working with people. I need a job.
Sounds familiar.
Now, better version. I'm Alex, and I've worked in restaurants for almost 2 years. I've learned to stay calm during busy hours and to communicate clearly with customers. I enjoy fast-paced environments, and I'm excited about the chance to join a team where I can keep growing.
Perfect. That's exactly the kind of answer that makes a recruiter think, okay, this person knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, and listeners, here's a little tip. Practice your answer out loud. Don't just write it down. When you speak it, you'll notice if it sounds natural or too robotic.
Absolutely. I remember once I memorized a perfect answer on paper. But when I tried to say it in the interview, it came out mechanical, like I was reading a script. The recruiter didn't look convinced.
Right. So find a middle point, prepare, but don't memorize word for word. Instead, remember the 3 parts and use your own words each time.
That way you'll sound natural and flexible.
Let's also talk about another mistake, starting with personal details that are not relevant. I've heard people say, "I'm 23 years old, I live with my parents. I like video games and pizza."
Oh yeah, I've heard that too. It sounds more like you're making a new friend, not applying for a job.
Exactly. Save that for later, maybe if they ask about hobbies. But in the first question, focus on professional details.
Let's give a few more examples in different jobs, so our listeners see how flexible this formula is.
Good idea. Let's imagine you're applying for a delivery job.
Okay. Bad version. I'm Michael, I have a bike, and I like delivering things.
That sounds like you just woke up.
Better version. I'm Michael, and I've worked in deliveries for over a year. I'm reliable. I always arrive on time, and I've learned to solve problems like unclear addresses or last-minute changes. I enjoy the responsibility of making sure people get their orders quickly and safely.
That's great. Short, confident, and directly connected to the job.
Now you try. Let's say you're applying as an office assistant.
Bad version first. I'm Alex. I know how to type. I want to work in an office.
Brutally honest, but not convincing.
Now better version. I'm Alex, and I have experience helping with administrative tasks. In my last job, I organized schedules and supported my manager with daily reports. I enjoy working with details and making sure things run smoothly. That's why I'm excited about this role as an office assistant.
Perfect. And see, it doesn't matter what job it is, customer service, waiter, delivery, office, you can always use the same structure.
Yes. And one more tip for our listeners, when you answer, smile. Even if you're nervous. Smiling changes your tone and makes you sound more confident and friendly.
Absolutely. Sometimes the interviewer remembers more how you made them feel than the exact words you said.
That's so true. Okay, let's recap what we've learned so far. Don't just say your name or "I need this job." Don't tell your entire life story. Use a simple 3-part structure: who you are professionally, key experience, and motivation. Practice out loud, but don't memorize like a robot. Keep it professional and relevant.
And remember, the goal of "tell me about yourself" is not to test your grammar. It's to break the ice and let the recruiter see if you can communicate clearly.
Exactly. It's your first impression, and as we know, first impressions are powerful.
Yes. So, to everyone listening, after this episode, take 5 minutes, write down your answer, and practice it with a friend or even in front of a mirror.
Or record yourself and listen. You'll notice things you want to improve.
Great idea.
All right, that was Chapter 1. We've survived the first question. In the next chapter, we'll move to another classic, "Why do you want to work here?" A question that can be dangerous if you don't prepare, because the wrong answer can kill your chances immediately.
Exactly. But don't worry, we'll share our funny mistakes and better answers so you know how to shine.
Let's do it.
All right, Alex, so we've survived the first question. Tell me about yourself. But right after that, there's another classic.
Oh yes, the one that can either make you look super motivated or completely uninterested. Why do you want to work here?
Exactly. It sounds innocent, but it's dangerous if you're not prepared.
Totally. Because if you answer this badly, the recruiter immediately thinks, this person is just here for the paycheck.
And let's be real, most of us are there for the paycheck, but we can't say it that way.
True. If you look at the recruiter and say, well, because I need money, you're done.
Or worse, I don't know, I just need a job. That shows no effort, no connection to the company.
Exactly. And I remember making that mistake. I once said, I just want to work in any company. The recruiter smiled politely, but inside, I knew I had just destroyed my chances.
Same here. I once answered, because you are hiring. It was technically true, but it made me sound desperate and lazy.
Yeah, that's the point. You need to show that you know something about the company and that you have a reason for choosing them.
Exactly. So, listeners, the trick is to connect the company with your skills and goals. Even if you don't know much about the company, you can still focus on qualities like growth, teamwork, or learning opportunities.
Let's do a role play. Imagine I'm applying for a call center job. Bad version first. I want to work here because I need a job.
Brutally honest, but bad.
Better version. I want to work here because I know this company values customer service. I enjoy helping people solve problems, and I think this role will let me develop my communication skills even more.
See the difference? Same person, same job, but the second answer makes you look motivated and aligned with the role.
Exactly. And notice, I didn't mention money. Everyone knows you want money, it's obvious. But the recruiter wants to hear motivation beyond that.
Let me try. Imagine I'm applying for a retail sales job. Bad version. I want to work here because it's close to my house.
Oh yes, I've said that one.
Better version. I want to work here because I admire how your store focuses on customer satisfaction. I've worked in sales before, and I enjoy helping customers find what they need. I think I can bring that same energy here.
Perfect. And that's something our listeners should notice. You don't need to know every detail about the company. Just pick one positive quality, customer service, teamwork, innovation, and connect it to yourself.
Exactly. Now, let's be real, sometimes we don't know much about the company. Maybe we just saw the job online and applied.
True. That happened to me once. I went to an interview without researching. When they asked, "Why do you want to work here?" I froze. I said, "Because, you look like a good company."
That's the universal desperate answer.
Yeah. So, lesson learned, always do a little research. Even 5 minutes on the company website can give you something to say.
Absolutely. And let's give our listeners a few safe phrases they can always use.
Sure, here are a few. I want to work here because I admire the company's focus on this position is a great fit for my skills in. I'm excited about the opportunity to grow in a team that values.
Yes. And let's try more examples with different jobs.
Good idea. Let's say you're applying for a waiter job.
Bad version, because I need money and you're hiring.
Classic.
Better version, because I enjoy working in restaurants. I know this restaurant is popular for its fast service and good atmosphere, and I'd love to be part of that.
Nice. Now I'll try one. Let's imagine I'm applying for an office assistant job. Bad version, because I want to work in an office.
Too general.
Better version, because I like organizing and supporting a team. I know your company values efficiency, and I think my skills in scheduling and attention to detail can contribute here.
That's great. And notice, listeners, Alex didn't need to know secret details about the company. Just a simple phrase like, your company values efficiency, already sounds professional.
Exactly. And you can always mention skills that fit almost any job: teamwork, problem solving, communication, responsibility.
Yes. Another example. Delivery job. Bad version, because I have a bike.
Too simple.
Better version, because I enjoy being on the move and making sure deliveries arrive on time. I know your company values reliability, and I'm confident I can provide that.
Perfect.
Let's also mention what not to say. For example, because I want to practice my English.
Oh, yes, I've heard people say that. And while it's nice to want to improve your English, in an interview, you should focus on what you can give, not what you want to get.
Exactly. So instead of, I want to practice my English, you could say, this job will allow me to use my English to help customers. Same idea, but focused on value.
That's a great point.
And here's another mistake, being too vague, like, because it's a good company. That doesn't mean anything.
Yes. Always try to be specific, even if it's simple. Instead of good company, say a company that values customer service, or a team that's known for innovation.
Exactly. Let's do one more role play. Alex, imagine you're in an interview and I'm the recruiter asking, so, why do you want to work here?
Bad version, because I live nearby.
End of interview.
Better version, because I admire this company's reputation for treating employees well. I want to be part of a team where I can contribute and also grow professionally.
That's excellent.
And here's something I realized. This question is also about attitude. If you sound bored or insecure, even a good answer will fall flat. But if you sound enthusiastic, even a simple answer works.
Totally agree. Enthusiasm is contagious.
So listeners, when you answer, don't just focus on the words. Focus on the energy. Smile, speak with confidence, and show you're genuinely interested.
Yes. The interviewer wants to feel that you actually want this job, not just any job.
Exactly.
Let's summarize for everyone. First, never say, because I need money. Second, don't be too vague, like because you're a good company. Third, do a little research, even 5 minutes. Fourth, connect your skills to the company's values. And fifth, show enthusiasm.
Perfect. That's the formula.
And you'll notice that this formula works for any job, call center, waiter, delivery, office, sales, anything.
Yes. And we'll give you homework, listeners. After this episode, choose a job you'd like to apply for and write your answer to, why do you want to work here? Then practice saying it out loud.
Great idea.
Okay, that's it for Chapter 2. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about the famous strengths and weaknesses question, the one that makes everyone nervous.
Oh yes, the one where you either brag too much or make yourself look terrible.
Exactly. We'll share how we messed up in the past and how to answer in a way that makes you look honest but still professional.
Sounds good. Let's go. Okay, Alex, now we're moving into one of the scariest parts of an interview. The question that makes people sweat.
You mean the one where you have to basically judge yourself?
Exactly. The classic, what are your strengths and weaknesses?
Oh man, I still remember the first time I heard that question. I froze. I thought, if I talk about my weaknesses, they won't hire me. But if I brag too much about my strengths, I'll sound arrogant.
Right. It feels like a trap.
Yeah, like the recruiter is secretly thinking, let's see if this guy destroys his own chances.
True. And I made both mistakes. Once I tried to hide my weaknesses completely, and once I admitted something that sounded terrible.
Same here. Let's share some of those disasters so our listeners feel less alone.
Good idea. Okay, here's mine. Once I was asked, what's your biggest weakness? And I panicked. So I said, I don't have any weaknesses.
Oh no.
Yeah, the recruiter raised an eyebrow like, sure you don't? And honestly, that answer made me look unrealistic, like I didn't know myself.
Exactly. Because everybody has weaknesses. Pretending you don't makes you look dishonest.
Right. And the opposite happened another time. They asked me the same question, and I said, well, sometimes I'm lazy.
That's even worse.
I know. I thought I was being honest, but I basically told them I wouldn't work hard.
That's the danger. If you give a weakness that's too strong, you kill your chances.
Exactly.
Okay, let me share mine. Once I said, my weakness is that I'm shy, and I was applying for a sales job.
Oh no, that's like saying I'm bad at talking to people, when the job is literally talking to people.
Exactly. And I could see the recruiter thinking, why is this guy here?
That's hilarious, but also painful.
Yeah. And for strengths, I've made mistakes too. I once said, my strength is that I work too hard.
The classic cliche.
Yeah, but it sounded fake, like I was trying too hard to sound perfect.
I've done the same. I once said, my strength is that I'm perfect at everything I do. I thought I was being funny, but the recruiter didn't laugh.
Oh man. Yeah, humor doesn't always work in interviews.
Exactly. So here's the question. How do we answer this properly?
I think the key is balance. You need to choose real strengths and weaknesses, but frame them in a smart way.
Right. For strengths, choose qualities that fit the job but don't sound exaggerated. For weaknesses, choose something real but not fatal, and show how you're working to improve it.
Exactly. That's the trick. Show progress.
Okay, let's do some role plays. I'll start with a strength. Imagine I'm applying for a call center job. Bad version, my strength is that I work too hard.
Classic cliche.
Better version, one of my strengths is communication. In my last job, I had to explain complex problems to customers in a simple way, and I enjoyed finding the right words to make them feel understood.
That's so much better. It's specific, it connects to the job, and it sounds real.
Exactly.
Okay, my turn. Imagine I'm applying for a waiter job. Bad version, my strength is that I like food.
Too basic?
Better version, one of my strengths is staying calm under pressure. When the restaurant gets very busy, I can keep a positive attitude and focus on giving good service.
Perfect. That's exactly what a manager wants to hear.
Yes.
Now let's try weaknesses.
Oh boy.
Bad version, I don't have weaknesses.
Immediate rejection.
Better version, sometimes I focus too much on details and it slows me down, but I've learned to manage this by setting personal deadlines to stay on track.
See, that's great. You admitted something real, but then you showed growth.
Exactly.
Okay, my turn. Bad version, my weakness is that I hate customers.
That's a career killer.
Yeah. Better version, sometimes I'm shy at first, especially with new people. But working in customer service has helped me practice speaking more confidently, and now I see it as something I'm improving every day.
That's excellent. You showed honesty, but also progress.
Yes, and that's the pattern listeners should use. Don't hide, don't destroy yourself, just show growth.
Exactly. And also, be careful not to choose weaknesses that are essential to the job, like saying, I'm bad at time management if the job requires punctuality.
Right. Or saying, I hate talking on the phone if the job is a call center.
Exactly.
Let's give our listeners a few examples of safe weaknesses they can adapt. Perfectionism, but explain how you manage it. Nervousness with public speaking, but you're practicing. Taking on too much responsibility, but learning to delegate. Being shy at first, but improving.
Those are all good.
And safe strengths too. communication skills, teamwork, problem solving, reliability, adaptability.
Exactly.
You know what? Let's act out a full mini interview with just this question. I'll ask you, you answer, then we'll switch.
Okay, let's try.
Michael, what would you say are your strengths and weaknesses?
One of my strengths is adaptability. In my last job, things change quickly, and I learned to adjust fast and support my team. As for a weakness, sometimes I take on too many tasks at once. But I've learned to prioritize and ask for help when needed, which has improved my productivity.
Nice. Balanced, specific, and real.
Okay, now it's your turn. Alex, what are your strengths and weaknesses?
One of my strengths is responsibility. I always make sure I finish tasks on time, and my manager could count on me. For weaknesses, I sometimes get nervous speaking in front of groups. But I've been practicing by volunteering to present in team meetings, and it's getting easier.
Excellent.
Thanks. And listeners, notice how both of us didn't use complicated vocabulary. We kept it simple, but professional.
Yes, and that's the key. This question is about self-awareness and honesty, not about perfect English.
Exactly.
So, let's wrap up this chapter with some tips.
Tip 1. Never say you have no weaknesses.
Tip 2. Don't choose weaknesses that will kill your chances.
Tip 3. Always show how you're improving.
Tip 4. For strengths, pick qualities that fit the job and give examples.
Tip 5. Keep your answers short, clear, and real.
Perfect summary.
All right, that was Chapter 3. In the next one, we're going to talk about behavioral questions, the ones that start with, "Tell me about a time when..."
Oh yes, those are tricky. But also, they're the best chance to tell a story and show your skills in action.
Exactly. We'll share some stories from our past jobs, some successful, some embarrassing, and show you how to use the STAR method to organize your answers.
Great. Let's dive into that next. All right, Alex, now we're moving into the big leagues.
Oh yes, the tough ones. The questions that start with, "Tell me about a time when..."
Exactly. These are called behavioral questions, and they're designed to see how you acted in real situations.
Yeah, they're scary because you can't just memorize one short sentence. You have to tell a story.
Right. And that's where a lot of people, including me, have crashed and burned.
Same here. I remember my first time with one of these. The recruiter asked, "Tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a coworker and how you solved it."
Ouch. That's a tough one.
Yeah, and I didn't know what to say. I just answered, "I don't fight with coworkers."
That sounds like you avoided the question.
Exactly. The recruiter wasn't happy because the point was to hear how I solve problems, not to deny they exist.
That's the trap. If you say, "That never happened to me," you lose the chance to show your skills.
Exactly.
For me, the disaster was when I gave way too many details. The recruiter asked, "Tell me about a time when you worked under pressure." And I started talking about every detail of the project, who was late, what we had for lunch, even the color of the office walls. 10 minutes later, I realized I still hadn't answered the question.
Oh man, I can imagine the recruiter thinking, "Please get to the point."
Exactly. That's why we need a structure.
Yes. And that's where the STAR method comes in.
Oh, yes, STAR. For our listeners, STAR stands for Situation, Task, Action, and Result.
Right. It's a simple way to organize your answer. You explain the situation, what the task or problem was, what action you took, and finally, the result.
Exactly. Let's try a role play with STAR. Imagine I'm applying for a retail job, and the recruiter asks, "Tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult customer."
Okay, let's hear it.
Bad version first. Yes, I had a difficult customer once, and I solved it.
That's too short.
Better version with star. In my last job at a clothing store, a customer came in very upset because the item she bought had a defect. Situation. It was my responsibility to handle complaints. Task. I listened carefully, apologized sincerely, and offered her an exchange or refund. Action. She calmed down, accepted the exchange, and even thanked me for the service. Result.
Perfect. That's exactly how you do it. Short story, clear steps, positive ending.
Yes, and it only takes about 1 minute to say.
Right. And here's another mistake people make. They forget the result. They tell the story, but never say what happened at the end.
Exactly. And the result is what shows impact.
Let me try one. Imagine I'm applying for a waiter job, and they ask, "Tell me about a time when you worked under pressure."
Okay, go ahead.
Bad version, yes, I worked under pressure many times. I survived.
Too vague.
Better version, when I worked as a waiter, sometimes the restaurant was completely full and several tables arrived at the same time. Situation. My task was to keep track of all the orders and make sure no one felt ignored. Task. I organized my notes carefully, prioritized urgent orders, and communicated with the kitchen constantly. Action. As a result, even during the busiest hour, all tables got their food on time, and the manager congratulated the team. Result.
Beautiful. That's exactly what they want.
Yes. And notice how I didn't exaggerate. It's just a normal story, but organized.
Exactly.
Let's give more examples from different jobs so our listeners can see how flexible STAR is.
Good idea. Okay, let's imagine a delivery job. The question is, tell me about a time when you solved a problem on the spot.
Bad version. I solve problems every day.
Too generic.
Better version. During a delivery, the address I received was incomplete. Situation. My task was to make sure the package arrived on time. Task. I called the customer, confirmed the details, and used GPS to adjust the route. Action. I delivered the package only 5 minutes late, and the customer appreciated the effort. Result.
Perfect. Simple, real, and professional.
Exactly.
Let's try another office assistant. Question. Tell me about a time when you had to manage several tasks at once.
Okay.
Bad version. I multitask all the time. I'm good at it.
That's bragging without proof.
Better version. As an office assistant, I sometimes had to prepare reports while answering phone calls and scheduling meetings. Situation. My task was to complete everything without missing deadlines. Task. I made a list of priorities, divided the work into blocks, and used reminders on my computer. Action. As a result, the reports were ready on time, calls were handled, and my manager was satisfied. Result.
Great. That shows real skills.
Yes. And listeners, you can see the pattern. It doesn't matter what the job is, you can always use STAR.
Exactly. And here's another tip. Don't be afraid to prepare stories in advance. Think of 3 or 4 examples from your past jobs or even school and practice telling them with STAR.
That's a great idea.
For example, prepare one about solving a problem, one about working under pressure, one about teamwork, and one about achieving a goal. Those cover almost every question.
Yes, that's like your personal toolbox.
Right.
Let's also talk about mistakes. Besides being too short or too detailed, another mistake is being negative.
Oh, yes. Like blaming others.
Exactly. If you say, the problem was my manager's fault and I hated him, you look unprofessional.
Right. Instead, focus on what you did, not on criticizing others.
Exactly.
And here's something else. Even if the story didn't end perfectly, you can still frame it positively.
True. For example,
Imagine you tried to solve a problem, but the customer was still upset. You can say, even though the customer remained dissatisfied, I learned the importance of staying calm and documenting everything for my manager.
perfect. That shows growth.
Exactly.
Okay, let's do one more role play. You ask me, then I'll ask you.
All right, Michael, tell me about a time when you worked as part of a team.
In my last job, I was part of a team that had to organize a store event situation. My task was to coordinate with coworkers to prepare everything on time. Task. I communicated daily with the team, divided responsibilities, and helped where needed. Action. As a result, the event was successful, and the manager said sales increased by 20% that day. Result.
Excellent.
Okay, now your turn. Alex, tell me about a time when you had to learn something new quickly.
When I started my last job, they introduced a new software system that I'd never used, Situation. My task was to learn it fast so I could do my daily work, Task. I watched tutorials, asked for help from coworkers, and practiced after hours, Action. In less than a week, I was confident using it, and I even helped train others, Result.
Perfect. That's exactly what recruiters love to hear: initiative and growth.
Yes.
All right, let's give our listeners a final checklist for behavioral questions.
Great idea.
Number 1, don't avoid the question. Always give a story.
Number 2, use STAR, situation, task, action, result.
Number 3, keep it short, about 1 minute.
Number 4, focus on your actions, not on blaming others.
Number 5, end with a positive result or lesson learned.
Perfect.
And remember, these questions are not about perfect grammar. They're about showing that you can think, act, and learn.
Exactly. And that's why they're so powerful.
All right, that was chapter 4. In the next one, we'll talk about the future-oriented questions, like where do you see yourself in 5 years, and how to close an interview with confidence.
Oh, yes, the ending is just as important as the beginning.
Exactly. So, let's get ready for that. All right, Alex, so we've made it through the first impression, the motivation question, strengths and weaknesses, and even those tricky behavioral questions.
Yeah, and now we're at the final part of the interview. The part where the recruiter looks at you and says, "So where do you see yourself in 5 years?"
Oh man, that one always used to make me panic.
Same. Because honestly, 5 years feels like forever. Most of us don't even know where we'll be in 6 months.
Exactly. And yet, recruiters love this question.
Yeah, because it's not really about predicting the future. It's about showing vision, motivation, and commitment.
Right? The mistake I used to make was answering too literally. I once said, in 5 years, I see myself living abroad with a family and maybe running my own business.
And what job were you applying for?
A retail assistant.
Oh man, that's like saying, "I'll be gone in 6 months."
Exactly. It didn't help me.
Yeah, I once said, "In 5 years, I want to be rich and retired." I thought it was funny, but the recruiter didn't laugh.
Oh no.
Yeah, terrible.
So let's be clear for our listeners. This question isn't about your personal dreams. It's about showing growth in your career and connecting it to the company.
Exactly. Even if you don't know your exact future, you can show that you want to develop skills, take more responsibility, or grow with the team.
Yes. Let's do a role play. Bad version first. Alex, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Uh, Maybe traveling or maybe in another country, I'm not sure.
That's honest but not professional.
Better version, in 5 years, I see myself growing into a leadership role where I can mentor others and take on more responsibility. I want to continue developing my skills and contributing to the success of the team.
Perfect. That shows ambition, but also loyalty.
Yes. Okay, your turn. Michael, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Bad version. I don't know. I just want a job right now.
That kills the conversation.
Better version. In 5 years, I'd like to become an expert in customer service. I want to be the kind of person that new employees can learn from. I hope to keep improving and helping the company provide excellent service.
That's excellent. And listeners, notice something important. These answers are flexible. You don't need to mention the exact company name or promise you'll stay forever. But you do need to show you're serious about growth.
Exactly. And here's another tip. Avoid sounding too extreme. If you say, in 5 years, I want to be the CEO, it sounds unrealistic.
Right. Ambition is good, but it has to make sense.
Yes.
Now let's move to the very last part of the interview when the recruiter asks, "Do you have any questions for us?"
Oh, yes. That moment when you're tired, your brain is fried, and you just want to leave.
Exactly. And most candidates say, "No, I'm fine."
Which is a mistake.
Yes. Because this is your chance to show interest and curiosity.
Right. The recruiter wants to see if you've thought about the role seriously.
So, what are some bad examples?
Bad question. How much vacation do I get?
Too early.
Bad question. 2. When can I get a promotion?
Yeah, that makes you look impatient.
Exactly.
Better questions sound like this. Can you tell me more about the team I'd be working with? What does success in this role look like? What are the next steps in the hiring process?
Those are excellent. They show that you care about the role and the company.
Yes. And here's a little trick. If you really don't know what to ask, you can always say, "I'd love to hear more about the training and development opportunities here." That's always safe.
Yes, that makes you look like someone who wants to grow.
Let's do a quick role play. I'll be the recruiter for 1 second. Michael, do you have any questions for us?
Bad version. No, I'm fine.
Too short.
Better version. Yes, I'd love to know what a typical day in this role looks like. That would help me picture how I can contribute best.
Perfect. Simple, but shows real interest.
Exactly. Okay, your turn. Alex, do you have any questions for us?
Bad version. When do I get my bonus?
Interview over.
Better version. Yes, I'd like to know more about the team culture. What's it like to work here day to day?
Excellent.
And for our listeners, here's the golden rule. Always prepare at least one question in advance. Don't leave it to improvisation.
Yes. And if you already got all the information during the interview, you can still say, "You've answered most of my questions already, but I'd like to know," and add something small.
Exactly. That way, you never end the interview with silence.
Right.
So, let's summarize for everyone.
For the 5 years question,
Don't be vague or personal. Focus on career growth. Show ambition, but realistic ambition. Connect your goals to the role or the company. Perfect. And for the closing questions, never say, "No, I'm fine." Avoid asking about money or vacation at the first interview. Prepare safe questions about the team, success in the role, or development opportunities.
yes. And one last piece of advice. End with gratitude. Thank the recruiter for their time and say you're excited about the opportunity.
Exactly. Something as simple as, Thank you for the opportunity to interview. I'm excited about the possibility of working here. That leaves a positive final impression.
Absolutely.
And remember, interviews are not about being perfect. They're about showing who you are, what you can do, and that you're willing to grow.
Exactly.
Okay, so that was Chapter 5. We've gone through every stage of the interview, from the first impression to the closing words.
Yes, and I hope our listeners feel more prepared now.
Me too. And to our audience, here's our challenge. Write down your answer to, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And one question you'd ask the recruiter. Practice them, and you'll feel much more confident.
Great advice.
All right, Michael, ready for the final reflection?
Absolutely. Let's close this episode strong. Wow, Alex, I can't believe we've reached the end of today's episode.
Yeah, it feels like we just started with the introduction, and now we've gone through all the chapters, first impressions, motivation, strengths and weaknesses, those tricky behavioral questions, and finally, future goals and closing.
Exactly. And honestly, I feel proud. Not because we're perfect interviewees, but because we shared the reality, our mistakes, our awkward moments, and how we learned to improve.
That's right. And I think that's important for everyone listening. Sometimes when you study English, you think, native speakers never make mistakes. Good candidates always know the right answer. But the truth is, everyone struggles.
Absolutely. And interviews are not about being perfect, they're about being prepared, being clear, and showing that you're willing to learn.
Yes. If you think back on what we covered, there are some key lessons.
Lesson 1. For tell me about yourself, keep it simple and structured. Who you are, what you've done, and why you're here.
Lesson 2. For why do you want to work here? Never say, because I need money. Instead, connect your motivation to the company and the role.
Lesson 3. For strengths and weaknesses, be honest but smart. Show your strengths with examples and present your weaknesses in a way that shows growth.
Lesson 4. For behavioral questions, use STAR. Situation, task, action, result. That structure will save you every time.
Lesson 5. 4. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Be ambitious but realistic. Show career growth, not just personal dreams.
And Lesson 6. Never end an interview with silence. Always ask a question. Show curiosity. Show interest. And end with gratitude.
Perfect. And I hope our listeners take these lessons and actually practice them.
Yes. Because listening is great, but interviews are like sports. You get better by practicing.
Absolutely. So here's our challenge for you, dear listener. Tonight, write down your answers to 3 questions. Tell me about yourself. Why do you want to work here? And what are your strengths and weaknesses? Then practice saying them out loud.
Yes, and if you can, record yourself. Listen to your tone. Ask yourself, do I sound confident? Do I sound clear? Am I giving examples?
Exactly. And remember, you don't need complicated vocabulary. Simple English with real stories is much more powerful than advanced words you can't pronounce under pressure.
That's so true. And something else, don't be afraid of silence. Sometimes recruiters pause after your answer and you think, oh no, I said something wrong. But often they're just taking notes.
Yes, great point. Don't panic. Stay calm.
Michael, if you had to give one last piece of advice to our listeners before we end, what would it be?
I'd say, remember that the interview is not only for the company to evaluate you, it's also for you to evaluate them. You're not just asking, will they hire me? You're also asking, Do I want to work here?
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. Because sometimes we forget our own value. We think, please give me this job, I'll take anything. But you also deserve to find a place where you can grow and feel respected.
I love that. For me, my last piece of advice would be, don't be afraid of mistakes. You will make them. We all do. But what matters is showing that you can keep going, smile, and correct yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, so before we close, let's thank everyone who listened today.
Yes. To all our Love English Lab listeners, thank you for spending this time with us. We know interviews are stressful, but we hope that after this episode, you feel more confident and more prepared.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend who's also preparing for interviews. Learning together is always easier.
Absolutely. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Right. And we'd love to hear from you. What's the hardest interview question you've ever faced in English? Share it with us in the comments.
Yes, we'll read some of your answers in a future episode.
All right, Michael, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah. Until next time, remember, practice, stay calm, and believe in yourself.
And keep learning English with us here at Love English Lab.
Take care, everyone. Good luck with your next interview.
See you soon.